When was the last time you looked at yourself and wondered if you're still carrying pieces of who you used to be, even though you've already outgrown them? It's a hard question because deep down you know there are habits, doubts, and patterns that no longer belong in the person you're becoming. Yet they cling to you, quietly shaping your choices, pulling you back when all you want is to move forward. The truth is you can't step into the future while dragging the weight of the past. That old version of you, the one built from fear, hesitation, and survival, is not the version that will unlock the life you dream of living. And until you decide to let it go, it will continue to hold you captive. Right now, there's a gap between the person you are and the person you know you could be. That gap is filled with excuses, hesitation, and stories you tell yourself about why you're not ready, why you can't, why it's too late. But that voice is lying to you. It is the echo of the old self, the self that learned to play small, to stay safe, to avoid risk. If you listen to that voice, you'll stay where you are. But if you silence it, if you choose to act in spite of it, you will begin to see the world shift in your favor. Think about how many times you felt that deep urge for change. Maybe it came at night when you couldn't sleep. Maybe it came in the middle of the day when you caught yourself drifting through the motions of a life that doesn't excite you anymore. That feeling is not an accident. It is your future self calling you forward. It is your potential reminding you that you were not born to repeat yesterday. You were born to grow, to expand, to rise beyond everything you thought you could be. But here's the part most people never realize. Growth doesn't happen by chance. It happens by force. You can't wait for motivation to come and save you. You can't wait for the perfect moment when you feel ready, because that moment will never arrive. You have to push yourself. You have to demand more from yourself than you ever have before. You must decide that comfort is no longer your friend, that playing small is no longer an option. When you do, you ignite a power inside of you that fear cannot control. And the reward? Freedom. Freedom from the chains of who you used to be. Freedom from the regrets that haunt you. Freedom from the limits you once believed were permanent. Imagine waking up and no longer being at war with your own mind. Imagine looking in the mirror and seeing someone you admire, someone you respect, someone who fought for their own evolution. That is what awaits you when you outgrow the old version of yourself. This journey will not be easy, but nothing worth becoming ever is. The struggle is proof that you're breaking through, that you're no longer willing to settle for less than you deserve. Every step you take away from the old you brings you closer to the life you've always wanted, but never dared to claim. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will not only understand how to outgrow the old you will feel unstoppable in your decision to never go back. The moment you decide to rise, the old you will resist with everything it has. It will whisper that you're not capable, that change is too hard, that it's safer to stay where you've always been. That resistance is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign you are stepping into new territory. Your brain has been wired to protect you from the unknown, but growth only happens in the unknown. Every doubt, every fear, every moment of hesitation is proof that you are moving toward a life beyond the limits of your past. Think of the comfort zone you've lived in for so long. It feels safe, predictable, familiar, but comfort is a cage disguised as peace. It slowly drains your energy, numbs your ambition, and convinces you to accept less than you're capable of. And the longer you sit in that cage, the harder it becomes to even imagine freedom. The truth is, nothing extraordinary ever comes from staying comfortable. Growth requires discomfort. Change demands sacrifice. You must trade the temporary ease of the old you for the lasting strength of the new you. Your identity is not fixed. Neuroscience proves that your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on the choices you make, the habits you practice, the thoughts you repeat. This means the version of you that feels weak today is not permanent. You can rewire yourself for courage, for confidence, for discipline, if you are willing to break the cycle of repeating yesterday's patterns. Every time you choose action over avoidance, every time you replace a destructive habit with a powerful one, you literally reshape who you are. That is how transformation happens. Not overnight, but through consistent, deliberate choices that compound into a new identity. Ask yourself this: who benefits when you stay the same? Certainly not you. Certainly not the dreams you buried. The only one who benefits is the old version of you, the one addicted to comfort, fear, and excuses. That version thrives every time you hit snooze, every time you procrastinate, every time you settle for less. But the moment you refuse to obey that old self, you begin starving it of power. The moment you act in alignment with who you want to become, the old you begins to die. And when it does, space opens. Space for courage to take root. Space for new standards to define you. Space for the life you've always imagined but never fully pursued. This is why the struggle feels so intense, because it is not just a battle of habits, it is a battle of identities. The old you is fighting for survival and the new you is fighting to be born. Your job is to choose which one wins. You don't need to wait for inspiration, you need to make a decision. A decision that says, from this moment forward, I will no longer serve the weaker version of myself. I will not keep repeating the same cycles that have kept me stuck. I will rise even when it feels impossible, because the pain of staying the same is far greater than the pain of growth. When you truly internalize this, you stop hesitating, you stop second guessing, you stop looking backward for validation and begin looking forward for possibility. And that shift, when it finally takes hold, is the point where the old you loses its grip and the new you starts to dominate. That is the beginning of freedom. That is the beginning of becoming unstoppable. The real battle begins in the small moments, the ones no one else sees. It's in the decision to rise when your mind screams for comfort. It's in the choice to focus when distractions fight for your attention. It's in the commitment to move forward even when the results aren't immediate. This is where transformation is born, not in one grand gesture, but in the repeated acts of discipline that tell the old you it no longer has control. Every small victory rewires your identity, proving to yourself that you are capable of so much more than you believe. The mistake most people make is waiting for motivation to strike before they act. Motivation is fragile. It comes and goes with mood, energy, and circumstance. But discipline once built is unshakable. Discipline is the bridge that carries you from the person you are to the person you must become. And every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are casting a vote for the new identity you are building. You are teaching your brain and body to trust you, to respect you, to believe that when you say you will do something, you mean it. That trust is the foundation of unstoppable confidence. The old version of you thrives on broken promises. Every time you tell yourself you'll change tomorrow, it survives another day. Every time you delay action, it grows stronger. But when you begin honoring your word, even in the smallest commitments, you weaken its grip. You show yourself that your word matters. You show yourself that you can be counted on. And that shift creates momentum so powerful it begins spilling into every area of your life. There is a simple truth: you cannot think your way into a new identity. You must act your way into it. Thoughts inspire, but actions transform. The person you dream of being is built in the choices you make daily, not in the intentions you keep in your head. If you want to be stronger, you must train. If you want to be more disciplined, you must practice discipline. If you want to live with courage, you must face fear. Each act is a brick, and every brick laid builds the foundation of the new you. And while the old version of you will always try to pull you back, every action you take is a declaration of war against it. You are saying, I refuse to live small. I refuse to settle. I refuse to betray myself any longer. That is the power of decisive action. It silences doubt and fuels transformation. The more you act, the more evidence you collect. And soon the evidence becomes undeniable. You are no longer who you used to be. Imagine the strength of waking up each day with proof that you've outgrown your past, proof that you can keep promises, proof that you can endure discomfort, proof that you can create change with your own hands. That kind of proof cannot be taken away. It becomes a part of you, unshakable, permanent, undeniable. And it is in that proof where you finally realize the truth. The old you doesn't stand a chance against the person you are choosing to become. The proof you gather from action becomes a weapon against the lies of the old self. Every time you follow through, the voice of doubt grows weaker. Every time you refuse to retreat, the grip of fear loosens. You begin to realize that the limits you once believed in were never real. They were walls built in your mind, walls that crumble the moment you push against them. And the more you push, the more you see that the only thing standing between you and your future has always been the outdated version of you who refused to believe change was possible. That version feeds on hesitation. It survives on your willingness to question your worth. But you are not here to survive. You are here to rise. You are here to build a life that reflects your true potential, not the shallow reflection of who you used to be. The old you is terrified of growth because growth means death to its excuses. It knows that once you step into discipline, into courage, into consistent action, it will cease to exist. That is why the resistance feels so heavy. That is why the struggle feels so endless. But resistance is not your enemy. Resistance is the signal that you are entering the very space where transformation happens. You cannot escape resistance, but you can master it. You master it by leaning into it, by proving with every decision that you are stronger than the pull of the past. Think of resistance like weight in the gym. The heavier it feels, the more strength it builds when you push against it. Every rep of discipline, every rep of courage, every rep of perseverance makes you stronger than the person you were yesterday. The struggle is not punishment. It is proof of growth. Without it, there is no progress. This is where most people quit. They feel the resistance and believe it's a sign they're not capable. But the truth is the opposite. Resistance means you are exactly where you need to be. It means you are stretching into new territory, into a version of yourself that the old you cannot comprehend. And if you can just hold on, if you can just push through that discomfort without giving up, you will discover strength you didn't know you had. That is how breakthroughs are made, not by avoiding resistance, but by embracing it until it transforms you. The greatest danger is not failure. The greatest danger is comfort. Failure teaches you. It sharpens you. It fuels growth. But comfort kills quietly. It convinces you to settle, to shrink, to abandon the hunger for more. Comfort whispers that tomorrow is good enough, that later will be easier, that you've already done enough. And if you listen, you lose the fight without even realizing it. That is why you must become ruthless in rejecting comfort. Not because rest is bad, but because settling is deadly. You cannot grow into greatness while clinging to the safety of mediocrity. There's a fire inside of you that knows this. It is the part of you that feels restless when you waste time, the part of you that feels guilty when you lower your standards, the part of you that longs for more even when everything looks fine on the surface. That fire is your true self calling you forward. And if you listen to it, if you protect it, if you feed it with relentless action, it will consume the old you until there is nothing left but strength, purpose, and unstoppable momentum. That fire inside you is not random. It is the purest signal that you were never meant to stay the same. Deep within, you already know that who you are today is not the limit of who you can become. That quiet restlessness, that pull toward more, is proof that you are capable of transformation far greater than you have allowed yourself to imagine. And yet, most people silence that fire. They drown it with distractions, numb it with comfort, bury it beneath routines that keep them safe but unfulfilled. But not you. You are listening, and by listening, you are stepping into the path that leads to becoming unstoppable. Your future self is waiting for you on the other side of sacrifice. That stronger, braver, more disciplined version of you already exists in potential, but it will never appear unless you demand it through consistent action. Every moment you choose growth over ease, you bring that version closer. Every choice you make that aligns with your highest standards sharpens it. And slowly, day by day, action by action, you begin to feel the shift. You no longer think of discipline as punishment. You see it as freedom. You no longer view sacrifice as loss. You see it as investment. This is the mindset of transformation. And once it takes root, the old you begins to dissolve. But you must be willing to pay the price. Growth requires discomfort, and discomfort is the doorway to everything you desire. You cannot wish your way into a stronger identity. You must walk through the fire of resistance, of fear, of uncertainty, and prove that you are willing to shed who you were in order to step into who you must become. The old you will fight to hold on, but every sacrifice you make stars it further. Every decision to delay gratification, to push beyond excuses, to do what others will not is a strike against the chains of your past self. This is where clarity matters. You must know what you stand for, what you will no longer tolerate, and what standards will define the new you. Without clarity, you drift back into old patterns. With clarity, every choice becomes simple. Does this action move me closer to my future self or keep me chained to the old one? And when you learn to ask this question daily, you begin living with power. Instead of passivity, you stop reacting to life and start creating it. There will be moments when it feels unbearable, Moments when the weight of change presses against you so hard you want to break. But these are not signs of weakness. They are signs of rebirth. Growth always feels like destruction because the old you is dying. The pain is not permanent, but the transformation it creates is. And when you push through, when you refuse to give up, you emerge stronger, clearer, and hungrier than ever before. The fire inside of you grows with every sacrifice, every disciplined act, every refusal to bow to the old self. That fire becomes your compass, your energy, your weapon. It lights the path forward when everything feels dark. It reminds you that the person you are meant to be is forged, not found. And as long as you protect that fire, as long as you keep feeding it, nothing can stop you from outgrowing the version of yourself that no longer belongs to the life you're creating. The fire that grows inside of you is not just meant to burn away the old. It is meant to forge something unshakable. Strength is not given. It is built in the furnace of persistence. Every time you act against your fears, every time you push when you want to quit, every time you choose discipline over ease, you are hammering yourself into the person you were always meant to be. This is not about pretending the struggle doesn't exist. It's about realizing the struggle is shaping you, refining you, preparing you for the life that only the stronger version of you can handle. The truth is, you are not just outgrowing habits or routines, you are outgrowing an entire identity. The old you was built for survival, built for staying small, built for avoiding pain. But survival is not living. Survival is a cage, and it's time to break the lock. The new you is built for impact, built for courage, built for life that demands more and rewards more. But that life is only unlocked through relentless commitment. The gap between who you are now and who you want to be is bridged by choices that demand sacrifice today so you can rise tomorrow. Do not mistake this for punishment. Sacrifice is not loss, it is transformation. When you sacrifice comfort, you gain resilience. When you sacrifice excuses, you gain power. When you sacrifice distractions, you gain clarity. Every trade you make in the direction of growth pays you back tenfold, but the reward does not come immediately. It comes in a quiet confidence of knowing you are no longer bound by the chains of your past self. It comes in the undeniable strength of waking up and realizing you are not who you used to be. The old you will always whisper for your attention, but you are not obligated to listen. That voice is a ghost. It is the echo of someone who no longer exists unless you allow them to. You give it power every time you delay, every time you settle, every time you shrink back from your potential. But you take its power away every time you act in alignment with who you are becoming. You don't need to argue with that voice. You silence it with action. You silence it with proof. You silence it with a life so strong, so disciplined, so focused that the old you has no room left to breathe. And when you do, something incredible happens. You begin to feel unstoppable. Not because the challenges disappear, but because you no longer run from them. You face them with the calm certainty that you can endure, that you can push through, that you can rise. That certainty is the reward of every sacrifice, the fruit of every disciplined choice, the evidence of every moment you chose to fight when it would have been easier to give up. That certainty is freedom, freedom from hesitation, freedom from excuses, freedom from the weight of who you used to be. And once you taste that freedom, you will never go back because you will finally understand that nothing the old you clings to is worth more than the life the new you is building. And from that moment on, your path is clear. Rise higher, burn brighter, and never again let the weaker version of yourself decide the limits of your future. Freedom is not just the absence of change, it is the presence of strength, clarity, and direction. It is waking up with the deep knowing that you are no longer controlled by old habits or limited beliefs. It is the unshakable confidence that comes from proving to yourself again and again that you can endure, you can grow, and you can create change with your own hands. This freedom is not given to you by chance. It is earned by the choices you make when no one is watching. It is earned in the silence of discipline, in the heat of resistance, in the moments where you choose to rise when everything in you wants to retreat. The old self was built on fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of discomfort. That fear shaped your actions, your habits, your standards. But the new you is not built on fear. It is built on courage. Courage is not the absence. of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. Each act of courage rewrites the story of who you are. Every time you face the thing you once avoided, you expand your strength and narrow the gap between who you are and who you could be. Fear shrinks in the face of action, and action is the weapon that dismantles the old self piece by piece. But courage is only the beginning. You must also cultivate discipline so powerful that it becomes second nature. Discipline is freedom disguised as effort. It feels heavy in the moment, but it creates a life that feels light. The old self resists discipline because it thrives in chaos and inconsistency. It feeds on impulsive choices and broken promises. But the new self thrives in structure, in alignment, in the unwavering decision to follow through no matter how you feel. Discipline is the bridge to every dream you have buried, and when you commit to it, your future begins to unfold. Still, discipline alone is not enough. You must also redefine your standards. The old you settle for good enough, but the new you demands excellence. Excellence is not about perfection. It is about refusing to live beneath your potential. It is about showing up fully, not halfway. It is about expecting more from yourself because you know you are capable of more. When you raise your standards, you raise your life. And everything you once tolerated from yourself, the laziness, the excuses, the avoidance, loses its place in the new identity you are creating. This is how transformation cements itself, not in fleeting motivation, but in courage, in discipline, in raised standards. It is a chain reaction. Courage fuels action. Action builds discipline. Discipline raises standards. And raised standards kill the old self once and for all. When you embrace this cycle, you stop fighting for change. You embody it. You don't need to convince yourself anymore. You live it, breathe it, become it, and the result is unstoppable momentum. Momentum that carries you forward when motivation fades. Momentum that keeps you aligned when challenges rise. Momentum that makes it harder to go back to the old you than to keep moving forward into the new. This is the power you hold within you right now. The power to step beyond everything you've been, everything you feared, everything you've tolerated, and finally rise into the version of yourself that has always been waiting. Momentum is the force that transforms effort into identity. At first, every action feels heavy, every step feels like a battle, but the more you move, the more natural it becomes. What once felt impossible begins to feel automatic. This is the power of compounding change. Every disciplined choice builds upon the last until the weight you once struggled to lift now feels effortless. And with every layer of progress, you feel the old version of yourself slipping further away, replaced by a stronger, sharper, more focused self who refuses to shrink back into weakness. But momentum must be protected. The old you will wait for cracks in your consistency. It will whisper temptations when you feel tired, offer excuses when you feel pressured, and remind you of how comfortable life used to be when you lived small. That is why awareness is everything. You must catch the old voice before it hooks you. You must see the excuse for what it is, a trap designed to drag you back into patterns that no longer serve you. The moment you expose that trap, its power weakens. And every time you choose not to fall for it, you reinforce the dominance of the new self you are building. Your brain loves evidence. It doesn't care about what you hope to be. It believes what you consistently prove. If you constantly prove laziness, it wires you for laziness. If you constantly prove discipline, it wires you for discipline. This is why action matters more than intention. Intention creates desire, but action creates belief. And once belief shifts, everything changes. You no longer have to fight yourself every day. You begin to identify as someone who shows up, someone who follows through, someone who refuses to negotiate with weakness. That identity is the strongest weapon against the pull of the past. But identity does not solidify in comfort. It is forged in repetition, in resilience, in relentless pursuit, when everything around you tells you to stop. When you keep moving forward in the face of fatigue, doubt, and temptation, you tell your subconscious, this is who I am now. And the more you do it, the more unshakable that identity becomes. Soon, you stop needing to force yourself because the habits you once had to build are now ingrained. The new you becomes natural. The old you becomes unrecognizable. This is not just personal change. It is rebirth. You are not only outgrowing an old version, you are burying it. You are refusing to let its excuses, fears, and limitations have any say in your future. And in that burial, you create space for the version of yourself that operates at a higher frequency, the version that sees possibilities where the old you only saw obstacles, the version that no longer asks for permission to grow but demands it through consistent action. There is a power inside you that activates the moment you decide to never return to who you were. It is a shift so deep that going backward feels unnatural. It is the certainty that you are no longer defined by the chains of the past, but by the freedom of who you are becoming. Protect that power, feed it with action, guard it with discipline, because once it takes root, there is no force strong enough to pull you back into the shadows of the old self. You have outgrown it, and there is no turning back. When you refuse to return to who you once were, a new kind of clarity begins to rise within you. The noise of excuses grows quieter, and the voice of purpose grows louder. You start to see patterns that once blinded you. You notice how much time was wasted on distractions, how many chances were lost to hesitation, how many opportunities slipped away because fear was in control. But instead of feeling regret, you feel fire because now you know better, and knowing better demands that you live better. The old self wanted comfort, but the new self craves alignment. Alignment between what you say you want and what you actually do. Every day becomes a test of that alignment. The gap between words and actions must close if you truly want to transform. Saying you want change is not enough. You must live it, breathe it, embody it with everything you do. Integrity with yourself is the most powerful form of strength. When your actions mirror your intentions, your confidence becomes unshakable. You no longer question whether you are capable because you prove it daily. You no longer wonder if transformation is possible because you are living proof of it. That is the freedom that comes from aligning who you are with who you want to be. The old you lived divided. Promises were made but not kept. Dreams were spoken but not pursued. Goals were written but not acted on. That division created doubt, and doubt drained your energy. But the new you refuses division. The new you refuses to betray your own word. Because once you stop lying to yourself, once you stop breaking your own trust, you begin to feel a power that can't be taken from you. You feel whole. You feel grounded. You feel unshakable, not because the world changed, but because you did. And that shift ripples into everything. Your standards rise. Your energy sharpens. The way you carry yourself changes because you are no longer faking growth. You are living it. People around you will feel it. Some will be inspired. Some will be uncomfortable. Some will even resist your growth because it challenges their own complacency. But that does not matter. You are no longer living for the approval of others. You are living for the evolution of yourself. And the deeper you step into that truth, the less you need validation. The only validation you require is the evidence you create through action. This is where transformation begins to solidify, not in dreams, but in embodiment. You are no longer chasing the future version of yourself. You are becoming it. Every sacrifice, every repetition, every hard choice has been building this moment. And while the old self may try to claw back, it no longer has the strength to chain you down. You are proving every single day that you are not who you once were. There is no greater feeling than realizing you can trust yourself, that your word is law, that your choices align with your vision, that the gap between who you were and who you are becoming is closing faster with each action. This is the reward of discipline. This is the reward of courage. This is the reward of refusing to live as the weaker version of yourself. And once you experience it fully, you will never again settle for the life that belonged to the old you. You have stepped beyond it, and now the only path is forward. Forward is the only direction that matters now. You have already proven that you can rise, that you can outlast the voice of hesitation, that you can silence the weight of your excuses with action. But the true test of growth is not what you do once. It is what you choose to do repeatedly. Transformation is sustained through consistency, through the relentless decision to keep showing up long after the excitement fades, long after the motivation disappears, long after the old you makes its final desperate attempt to pull you back. Consistency is the weapon that makes the new identity unshakable. Anyone can change for a day. Anyone can commit for a week. But the new you is built in the months and years of choosing to rise when no one is watching. That is why you cannot measure yourself by temporary results. The mirror may not show the change yet. The world may not applaud you yet. But every single act of consistency is building momentum beneath the surface. Like roots digging deeper into the ground, your actions are creating stability, anchoring you into the identity you are choosing. The old version of you thrived on inconsistency. It made promises, broke them, then tried again half-heartedly. That cycle created frustration, self-doubt, and guilt that fed into more procrastination. Breaking that cycle requires a new standard. No matter how you feel, you show up no matter how heavy the day you rise. No matter how tempting it is to stop, you keep moving because the moment you stop negotiating with your feelings, you become unstoppable. You no longer ask yourself if you feel like doing it. You simply do it because it is who you are now. And this is where the deepest freedom emerges. When your actions no longer depend on emotion, you are no longer a slave to mood swings, to fatigue, to resistance. You are driven by something greater, commitment to your higher self. That commitment is what separates those who dream from those who transform. Dreams will always tempt you to wait. Commitment demands you act now. Dreams ask you to hope. Commitment requires you to prove. Dreams fade in the presence of struggle. Commitment grows stronger in the fire of resistance. Every day you honor that commitment, the old you loses its voice. It becomes harder to imagine going back, harder to picture yourself tolerating the same excuses, harder to fit into the patterns you once thought were permanent. You outgrow the old identity not through dramatic moments, but through countless small choices that accumulate into unshakable transformation. That is why consistency is not just a habit, it is the very fabric of becoming. And once you embody it, life begins to respond differently. Opportunities align. People notice the energy shift. The doors that were once closed begin to open because the new you has the strength to walk through them. You realize that you no longer need to chase validation or prove yourself to anyone. The proof is in your life. The evidence is in your discipline. The reward is in your freedom. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is the path to greatness. It is the silent work that turns into undeniable results. It is the daily choice that ensures the old you can never return. Protect it, guard it, live by it, and you will rise into a version of yourself so powerful, so unshakable, that the old you will never again be strong enough to hold you back. Consistency lays the foundation, but intensity carves the breakthrough. To truly outgrow the old self, you must do more than simply maintain. You must stretch. Growth is not sustained by doing only what is comfortable, but by daring to go beyond the limits that once defined you. The old version of you avoided intensity because it feared failure, it feared exhaustion, it feared the unknown. But the new you understands that intensity is not something to fear. It is the very force that pulls hidden strength from within you. There is a part of you that you have never met yet, a level of potential untouched, a reserve of energy and courage that has been waiting. You only discover it when you push yourself beyond the place where you normally stop. That moment when your mind screams to quit, that moment when your body feels heavy, that moment when the excuse seems justified, that is the exact doorway to the next version of yourself. Most never cross it. They retreat at the edge of discomfort, and in doing so, they keep repeating the same life. But not you. You are choosing to push past it, to find out what lies on the other side of resistance. The human mind is designed to protect you from danger, but in modern life, it confuses discomfort with threat. It tells you to stop when you are safe, to rest when you are capable of more, to settle when you still have strength left inside. And if you listen, you never reach your true limits. But when you choose to override that voice, when you demand more, you teach your mind that no longer controls you, you control it. That shift is where power begins. You begin to see struggle, not as suffering, but as sharpening. You begin to see challenge, not as punishment, but as preparation. Intensity doesn't mean chaos. It means deliberate effort, focused energy, and a refusal to coast. It means raising the bar higher than the old you would ever dare. It means holding yourself accountable to a standard that scares you because it forces you to grow. The old self will beg you to lower the bar. The new self insists you raise it. And every time you do, you stretch into a stronger identity that cannot be broken by weakness. This is where breakthroughs are made. They are not sudden miracles. They are the natural outcome of consistent effort combined with deliberate intensity. The old you cannot survive this combination. It crumbles under the weight of repetition, and it shatters under the pressure of intensity. And in its place rises a new identity, unshakable and undeniable. You look back and realize you no longer relate to the person who once hesitated, who once feared, who once settled. That version feels foreign to you, a ghost of someone who no longer exists. And once you reach this stage, life bends to meet you. Opportunities find you because you have become the kind of person who can handle them. Strength flows through you because you've proven you can carry the weight. Discipline becomes joy because it reminds you of who you are becoming. Intensity becomes purpose because it reminds you there is always more within you to give. This is how the old you dies, not in one moment, but in every moment you dare to demand more than you once believed was possible. And each time you do, the fire inside burns brighter, carrying you into a life the old you could never imagine. The old self does not vanish quietly. It resists, it whispers, it tries to reclaim control in subtle ways. It shows up in the urge to procrastinate, in the temptation to take shortcuts, in the quiet voice that says you've already done enough. This is not weakness. It is proof that you are changing. The old identity fights hardest when it knows it is being destroyed. That is why you must remain vigilant, not only against failure, but against comfort, because comfort is the most dangerous enemy of growth. It disguises itself as rest, as reward, as balance, but in reality, it is a trap designed to pull you back into who you once were. You must learn to treat comfort as a signal. When things begin to feel too easy, it means you have stopped growing. When your routine feels automatic, it means you are no longer stretching. Growth lives at the edge of discomfort, and the new you thrives there. That edge becomes your compass, guiding you toward the places that scare you, challenge you, and force you to expand. The old you hid from those places, the new you hunts for them, knowing they are the doorways to strength. But this doesn't mean you chase chaos. It means you chase challenge with clarity. You embrace the friction of growth with purpose, not recklessness. You build resilience not by avoiding struggle, but by leaning into it until it no longer feels like suffering. It feels like progress. Each time you resist the pull of comfort, you build armor around your discipline. Each time you say no to the easy path, you reinforce the identity of someone who refuses to shrink back. And each time you step willingly into discomfort, you step closer to the version of yourself that cannot be shaken by circumstances. The truth is, your future demands more than comfort could ever provide. Comfort promises peace, but it delivers stagnation. Comfort promises safety, but it steals possibility. Comfort promises happiness, but it blinds you to the deeper fulfillment that only comes from growth. You are not here to live a life that is merely safe. You are here to live a life that is alive. And aliveness requires risk, requires courage, requires leaving behind everything that feels predictable. When you strip away the illusions of comfort, you find your true self waiting, the self that is no longer afraid of challenge, the self that knows the cost of mediocrity is far greater than the cost of effort, the self that understands discomfort is not punishment, it is proof of transformation. And once you embrace this, you realize you no longer need to fear the pull of the old you, because every moment of discomfort becomes a reminder that you are growing. And every challenge becomes evidence that you are stepping fully into the new identity you were meant to embody. The old you cannot survive in discomfort. It dies there. And so you choose to live there, not as a victim, but as a warrior, not because you enjoy struggle, but because you understand it is the path to freedom. And the deeper you walk into that path, the more unrecognizable the old you becomes, until one day it no longer has power, no longer has influence, no longer even has a voice. What remains is only strength, clarity, and the unstoppable force of who you were always meant to be. Every time you resist the pull of the old you are proving something far greater than discipline. You are proving identity. Transformation is not about doing different things for a short season. It is about becoming someone new entirely. The old you operated from habits built on survival, fear, and convenience. The new you operates from vision, strength, and responsibility. And once you step fully into that identity, your actions stop feeling like chores. They become expressions of who you are. This is why so many people fail to sustain change. They treat new actions as tasks to complete, not as evidence of identity to embody. They force themselves to do the workout, to resist the temptation, to stay disciplined for a moment, but deep down they still see themselves as the same person who struggles, the same person who quits. And eventually, identity wins over behavior. You always act in alignment with who you believe you are. That is why you must stop trying to simply do better and start choosing to become better. The shift is not external first, it is internal. The new you is born the moment you stop saying, I'm trying, and begin declaring, this is who I am now. Because trying leaves room for failure as identity. Becoming removes it. Trying makes you a struggler. Becoming makes you the type of person who lives by a standard. And the brain adapts quickly. The moment you decide something is who you are, you begin to act in harmony with it. Just as someone who identifies as a runner runs, someone who identifies as disciplined acts with discipline, someone who identifies as strong chooses strength. It becomes natural. It becomes inevitable. That is why the old you cannot follow you forward. It belongs to a different identity. Its values were different. Its standards were different. Its limits were different. And each time you act as the new you, you are reinforcing that separation. You are pulling further and further away from the identity that once kept you stuck. The distance grows until there is no overlap, until the old version feels foreign, until it no longer feels like home. And in that space, you find the freedom to finally live as you were always meant to. But identity is not declared once. It is reinforced daily. You must remind yourself through your choices, through your words, through your actions, who you are becoming. Every decision is either casting a vote for the old you or the new you. And the more votes you cast for your highest self, the stronger it becomes, the louder its voice grows, the more natural its actions feel. Until one day, you no longer have to force it. You simply live it. And this is the deepest reward of transformation. You no longer feel like you are fighting yourself. You no longer feel the exhausting pull between wanting change and resisting it. You feel alignment. You feel congruence. You feel the power of becoming one with the vision you carry. That is when momentum accelerates. That is when discipline feels lighter. That is when the old self finally dissolves, leaving behind only the strength of identity chosen and lived. This is the level where transformation is no longer something you do. It is something you are. And nothing is more unshakable than a person who lives in harmony with their highest identity. When you begin to live in alignment with a new identity, you realize something profound. You are no longer chasing transformation, you are embodying it. The pursuit shifts from forcing change to protecting it, from battling resistance to nurturing strength. And in this stage, you must understand that your environment matters as much as your choices. The old you thrived in environments of distraction, temptation, and low standards. It fed off people who validated your excuses, spaces that encouraged comfort, and routines that made it easy to stay small. If you keep the same environment, the old identity will always have a doorway back in. The new you requires a different atmosphere.